Hello YouTubers, Fat Man in the Beard here. Sorry it's been a while, guys. I've been kind of busy. This fat guy has got to get in shape, so I've been going to the gym, eating better. Doc says I got to get healthy, or apparently I'm gonna die. I've got to get in shape and eat better. So I've been doing that, and that's kind of taking up some time. I just posted the winners for the giveaway, 50 subscriber giveaway. So congratulations to Mr. Tony the Dead and Mr. Al, and they will be receiving their prizes shortly. They're both got out in the mail today. So, but yeah, Mr. Al recommended that I do a video on the top 5 concerts I've ever been to, and I thought, wow, that's a really great idea considering I have been to a lot. And I do mean a lot of concerts. I had to go through all these ticket stubs. So I've been to a lot of shows over the years, but I nailed it down to just these 5 right here, and I'm gonna go over those concerts with you guys one at a time here. I do want to say that there are several bands that I haven't seen over the years that I really wanted to. But one of them I'm actually going to be able to see in July. My girlfriend scored tickets for us to go see the final Motley Crue tour with Alice Cooper. I've wanted to see Motley Crue since probably the 4th grade when I got a recorded cassette copy of Shout at the Devil. But my parents were extremely religious and would never have let me go to a Motley Crue concert. So I'm finally going to get to see Motley Crue in July, and I'm really stoked about it, and I'll probably have a video up about that. I might even take my video camera with me. Maybe I can get it in to the show. Cross my fingers. Let's hope that happens. So maybe I'll have some cool footage, and I'll talk about the concert when I get back. And, well, maybe I'll talk about the concert while I'm there, if I can get my video camera in. We'll just see. So yeah, I got 5 concerts here, and I will go into a little bit of a story about them and tell you kind of some details and some funny things that happened at these shows. Unfortunately, there was a lot I would like to have included in this, but for legal reasons, I'm going to have to leave out some things because, yeah. Anyway, I think you get it. Enough said. So let's start with number 5. And I went with Primus. I went and saw Primus. Let's see, this was 1996. I was a senior in high school. This is when Primus was on the Tales from the Punch Bowl tour, and you know, if you've ever watched any kind of live footage of Les Claypool playing, it's just amazing. And those guys are super talented, and just to see him live and up close playing the bass is just amazing. He's just a super. Les Claypool's probably the most talented bassist ever. He's just and his thought process and the way he creates music is very different. It's very different from anything anyone has ever done in the history of music. The way he structures things, and lyrically, he's just a bizarre stuff. But that show was really cool. It was one of the first concerts I ever went to where there was pretty heavy drug use. It was very bizarre. That was a very bizarre concert for me. I hadn't been exposed to a lot of that up until then, but it was a lot of fun. Everyone at that show was very cool, and I love Primus. Sailing the Seas of Cheese and Pork Soda, even Tales from the Punch Bowl, though those were all great albums, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, Primus was very, very cool, and they still make music, and they're still around, and yeah, their music has definitely gone downhill, but back in the day they were a great band. Number 4, we will go with this one. Actually, I was gonna put this number 3, but I'm gonna go with this as number 4, and that was AFI. Let's see if I can get that closer. This was back in 2000. I'd actually been I'd been listening to AFI since the early 90s. Well, yeah, about 92, 93 I've been listening to AFI. This was around the time that their sound changed. They were on tour for Black Sails in the Sunset. So this was the start of them moving away from punk rock, but still in that realm of punk rock. And that was a really great show. It was at a very small venue here in Portland called the La Luna. Me and my ex-wife at the time went and saw them, and that was a very cool show. They have a very great stage presence. Davey Havok just came out. It was at that point he had really long hair on one side and kind of shaved on the other. He was in all black, like rubber leather stuff, and he came out. They had pumpkins lit all over the stage, and they just played a really great set of a lot of their older stuff. Most people forget that before, let's see, what was the album? Sing the Sorrow. They had 3 albums before that. Actually, no, 4 albums before that, I think. And they started out as a punk rock band. They never, I don't think they ever intended to be where they are now. It's just the natural progression of the music. But that show was super awesome. The last song they played there was God Called In Sick Today. So if you're familiar with God Called In Sick Today, it's kind of a slower song. And they played it as the last encore song of the night. And you could definitely tell at that point that the shift between, I guess, what is now considered emo, screamo, the scene was changing. And I could definitely see it in the crowd. They played the song, and the atmosphere in there, and everyone sort of changed. And you could sort of see this, like, punk rock was starting to sort of die off, and this new scene of kids were starting to move in. And so it was a very bizarre show for me in a lot of respects, because I didn't understand really at the moment what was going on, because up until that point, and maybe a little bit before that, maybe 1999, the scene had shifted. You know, you had bands like the Get Up Kids and Boy Sets Fire, and all these new bands that were starting to move in and take over that scene of punk rock. Not for the best, obviously. So a lot of those bands were starting, and so like I said, that was the show where I really like stood back at the last song, and I looked around at everyone, and I thought, wow, something's different. Something isn't right here. Something is changing, and it definitely did. The next time I saw AFI was probably about 6 years later, when they were on tour for the December Underground. And you could tell the kids there were very different, and the scene was very different, and their sound was very different. Not that I disliked it, but it was very much a different scene. So it was very cool to be at a show where it was like a tipping point of where things were changing in that scene, especially in punk rock. So that was a very, very cool show. Number 3. Number 3 is Korn. I saw them, this was 1997, I believe. 1997, yeah, that's what it says. 1997. And yeah, I saw Korn when they were on the Life is Peachy tour. And I will say, I've been, and I'll show you the other, when I get to the other 2 shows, number 2 and number 1, you'll understand a little more. But hands down, Korn was the craziest as far as just the crowd went, and the energy in there. I will say, I don't know if they actually do it, because I haven't been to a heavy metal concert or any kind of really heavy music show in a long time, because I'm old and fat, and I have a herniated disc. So I can't go to things like that. But I will say, at the time during heavy metal shows, after the opening act would come on or leave the stage, they would kill the lights before the next band came out. And I mean, it was pitch black in there. You couldn't see more than a couple inches in front of you. And then the lights would kick on, the band would be on stage. So Of course, kill the lights, band's on stage, crowd just pushes forward. Everyone's just smushed in there. And Blind kicks in, and I mean, that place erupted, and I got trampled to the floor and stepped on probably a million times before, thank goodness, this big, tall guy reached down and picked me up and helped me out of this, just getting pummeled on the ground. And I just had to run out of the pit for a little bit and just kind of get to freedom and make sure I was okay. But the crazy thing is I rush out of there, and I kind of standing back, you know, where you can kind of be out of the crowd but still near it. And this poor 16-year-old girl is holding her nose, and the blood is just everywhere. I mean, I don't know what happened to her, but I felt so bad for her. She had probably got smacked, or I don't know what happened to her. But that show was hands down the craziest thing. When Blind kicked in, I've never seen anything. And I've been, like I said, I've been to a lot of shows, and that was hands down the craziest show. And they put on an exceptional show, and it was a lot of fun. After that, I went back into the crowd, but not really too deep, just because it was just so ferocious in there, and the people were just insane in there. But I really do like Korn. Even to this day, I still love their first two albums. Follow the Leader, some of it's okay, but for me, really, it's just their first two albums. But that was a really interesting show. Of like, I think that show almost kind of scared me. Like, I don't know if I can come back to these anymore. But of course I did, and I went on to see a million more concerts. I was probably about 18 or 19 when I saw Korn, somewhere in there, age-wise. But yeah, that was a very fun show. Number 4. Now, you're probably wondering why this isn't number 1, but I saw Pantera. I saw them on the Great Southern Trendkill Tour, and that was back in '97 as well. And Pantera, let's start out. So I went with a large group of friends. I think there was about 12 of us. We all kind of were picking people up kind of as we went up to the show, because it was about a 45-minute drive from where I lived at the time to the show. So there's about 12 of us, heavily intoxicated, and other mind-altering substances were also included in that. But I will say, Cold Chamber opened up for them, and so if you're familiar with Cold Chamber, they're another just, man, as soon as we got in there, that place blew up. Cold Chamber was really great live. But the crazy thing about Pantera is, I had never been to a show where more people were just heavily intoxicated, and a lot of people just passed out everywhere. And vomiting. I'd never seen anything like it. Actually, and I want to say this too. Actually, the pit and the crowd area was not nearly as bad as Korn was. Not even. Actually, I'm going to say not even close. The Pantera, the fans are more the fans are different, because Pantera goes way back. So you had fans that were like fans in the 80s and the early 90s, kind of like the Cowboys from Hell. So you had kind of what I call those butt rockers, the people who liked all that 80s metal. Not that they're bad people; they're fun people to party with, because those people aren't there to hurt you. You know, they're not there to beat each other up. They're there to to drink and have a good time and really enjoy the music. So you have a really weird, strange age group of people that go to, well, rest in peace, Dimebag, Pantera shows, or at the time went to Pantera shows. But they put on an amazing show. They're really into the crowd, and they got everybody pumped up. But man, I had several friends that passed out, and at that time they didn't call ambulances or anything. Like, you just hauled your buddy out to the car and slumped him up, next to a porta potty or some shit like that. Like, there was people passed out up in the stage, the seating area. Of course, because where we saw them, there was seating, but a ton of floor area. So, I mean, if you wanted to be on the floor, you could. But The only people up in the seats were girlfriends basically of the guys, and passed out people and drunk people. So that show was really fun, and I'll always remember that show. I remember the backdrop was this rattlesnake, and on the floor they had these laser things or lighting somehow, that huge pentagrams going on the floor, and all these marijuana leaves in the background. They somehow posed up on there. So I'll never forget that show. They had a really great backdrop to that show, and they're definitely they're one of those few bands still left that were still left at that time that really knew how to put on a really great show and really get the crowd pumped up. And of course, if you've seen Pantera, any of the Pantera home videos, you know, they throw out, you know, they get those little, you know, plastic cups, and they fill them up about that much beer, you know, and they're tossing them out in the crowd. I mean, you know, tons and tons of them, and people are catching them and drinking, and beer's getting spilled everywhere, and it was just it was a crazy time. So yeah, Pantera was just a really, really great show. But my number one show is I saw Marilyn Manson, also I believe in 1997. Yes, 1997. I saw him on the Antichrist Superstar Tour. Now, love him or hate him, and I'm sure there are people that really dislike Marilyn Manson, but what I will say is, and still to this day, I've never been to a show where the backdrop of the stage and the stage setup and the way they entered the show was probably the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, and the showmanship is top notch, the best I've ever seen. We went in there, and also I will say L7 opened up for him, and Mr. Al, I think you recently, I talked about L7, you said you liked them, or had listened to them, and was really enjoying them, so I'm glad you enjoyed some of the bands I had been talked about in some recent videos. But L7 opened for them, and those chicks are just wild too. I mean, they put on a hell of a show, and they got that crowd so pumped up. But Marilyn Manson comes out, and they had like this mesh-looking, I don't know, drape type thing in the front that you could see through it, but not well. And when they came out, it was like the lights flickered for a second, and that mesh thing that was in the front of the stage was gone, and this podium popped out of nowhere. I think it come out of the floor. I don't know where it came from. And Marilyn Manson was just there, and the whole band was there. I don't even know where. I didn't see instruments set up or anything. It was just bizarre. Like the band was just there, and they came in playing, I think, the Hate Anthem song from Antichrist Superstar, and it's that, and it just, the whole place blew up, and it just, I've never seen or been to anything like that, and that was just out of control. I've never seen people having sex in the crowd, just openly using drugs everywhere, alcohol I mean, bizarre things, I mean, happened at this show. Nothing that I never saw anything, Marilyn Manson never did anything illegal on stage. I never saw him perform any kind of sex acts, none of that. The rumors that you hear about Marilyn Manson, none of that was there. However, there were about probably 1,000 to 1,200 protesters outside. So waiting to get in the show, there was a lot of people going back and forth, yelling. There was beer bottles being thrown at people. Just a lot of... It's one of those moments in time where this was a big deal. Similar to, I would say, something like when the Doors came out. There was a lot of protesting after, because of things that went on in the shows. And this is definitely one of those historical moments in music where I was actually able to be a part of. And so it was kind of crazy, outside the show was crazy as well as inside. And I actually saw several of the protesters that came into the show that were, I'm assuming, there to see if he was doing anything illegal and report it to the news or the authorities or whatever, but nothing ever happened. Also, I did see, actually I had to help, there was they're actually in Marilyn Manson's book that he wrote called The Long Hard Road Out of Hell. And in the middle, it shows these two young girls, and one has Marilyn and one has Manson, I believe, carved into their chests. And they became kind of famous because they basically followed him through his whole North American tour that year. So I think there was like, I don't know, something like 32 or 36 American show dates in America, and they were at every show. They literally just hitchhiked, or I don't know how they got around to each show and got enough money to get into each show. But they were handcuffed to each other, which made for problems when you have a very passionate crowd. So the poor girls, basically, their wrists were getting torn apart. So me and another guy helped those two girls get out of they were right at the very front up against the bar, but somebody was pushing in between the middle of them and basically tearing their wrists apart. So that was kind of crazy to see as well. But hands down, Marilyn Manson was the best show I've ever seen. And you can go on YouTube and look up any of the footage from the Antichrist Superstar Tour just to kind of get an idea. But the stage props and everything for that show were just amazing. And some of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life took place at that show as well. So, but just a couple other shows here that I've been to. Let's see. I saw the Cherry Poppin' Daddies back in the 90s as well with one of my exes when swing music started to come back. They came out with the album Zoot Suit Riot, and they were fun. I saw them down in Eugene, Oregon. If you're not familiar with Eugene, Oregon, look it up. They've been mentioned in various songs. Sublime talked about them in songs. So, not them, but the city. Eugene, Oregon's a hot spot for anarchists and a lot of rioting and hippies and various other things that went on there. Flogging Molly, another ground. Placebo, not very good live. Pinback. Pinback's a really good one. I saw Henry Rollins spoken word a couple times. He's really cool. Brand New was very awesome. Saw them a couple years back. Dropkick Murphys, saw those guys. They're alright live. She Wants Revenge, went and saw them a couple years back. Local band Floater, I've talked about those guys. Let's see what else we got here. I went and saw the Vandals. Punk band called the Vandals. They're pretty big in the scene. Back in the day, Silverchair. They became a pop band. This ticket's so old I can't even make out what the band is. It's gone. I don't know. Same with this one. I can't even make out the band anymore. Saw Marilyn Manson again on the Beautiful People, or not the Beautiful People, the Mechanical Animals tour. And I've lost ticket stubs to tons of other shows that I've been to over the years, but this is just all that I have left. So I've been to a lot of shows, and I've done a lot of things, and had some good times. And like I said, I'm going to see Motley Crue on the final tour in July, so hopefully I'll have some footage from that. That's about it, guys. I'm also going to put up another video, hopefully tonight. I'm going to show off some of my collectibles and toys, because that was also another one that was mentioned several times on there. So I'll also try and get that video up as well tonight, guys. So, alright, that's it for me, guys. Take it sleazy.